We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Conversation with him, Faith and Freedom, along with Matt Couch. Good guy.
Yeah, very solid guy. And then at the end of the show, we're going to also have Ann Vandersteele, from co-founder of American Made Foundation. And so we're looking forward to all three of these guests today. Our topic for the first 30 minutes, or maybe one of the topics, maybe we'll have a couple different things we'll go over, but Juan sent this to me. He's always sending me stuff that anytime that Juan is our director, producer, technician. He's everything over here for the show. And if Juan ever takes a break, then we just can't have the show because Juan is the show. But he always likes to send me, because I'm a pastor, he likes to send me biblical arguments that people try to use to support liberalism, and says, "Is this true? Can you refute this?" So I'm gonna maybe Juan, can you throw that up on the screen? He doesn't have it. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about immigration to start off the show today. And I wanted to, I'm going to read it to you. Juan will get it up on the screen whenever he's able to. But it's Leviticus 19:33. This has been going around X over the last few days. It is this statement from the Old Testament law in Leviticus 19. "And if a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, ye shall not vex him." I'm reading it from that old English King James version. I don't know what Juan's going to put up on the screen, but that's why it sounds ye and thee and all that. "But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." So this is something people say, "Aha, gotcha, Christians. You have to be for immigration because the Bible says if a stranger's in your land, you're not supposed to vex him, and you're supposed to treat him like yourself. He's supposed to automatically be like anyone else in the land."
I don't think that's what that actually means.
It's not.
No.
You're right.
And of course, they're not using it to make the argument for immigration, for legal immigration. They're using it to make the argument for illegal immigration. I love how they continuously play those word games. They conflate the economic impact of all immigrants and the lack of criminality among all immigrants as if it is the same lack of criminality or economic impact among illegal immigrants. And I think it's important to make that differentiation. But go ahead and give the biblical.
Well, no, I mean, you're exactly right, because what country in the world is just going to let unchecked people just come into their country and you can't even tell who's an immigrant and who's a citizen? Mm-hmm. You've got to have some kind of system, or else you can't have any kind of laws if you don't know who's a citizen and who's not.
If I remember correctly, even in the Old Testament, they had to provide papers going through different provinces of the Middle East at that time. At least when the Romans were in control.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, yes, the Romans did have censuses.
Yep.
That's not coming out right. A census where they would count people, so they could count you by your father's household and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
By the way, one of the reasons you had to, if you're a wife, you had to take on your husband's name and all that kind of stuff, is because it's the only way to count you. You're counted by families. You got to group together in families, that kind of thing. But at any rate, this Juan, do you have the video? Maybe you have this one. I don't know. Juan's having a rough day, I think. But we have a video that's been circulating around of the riots going on in Mexico over not immigrants and not illegal immigrants, but just tourists, American tourists going to Mexico. The Mexicans are rioting over it.
Rioting over American tourists, the ones that are actually this is where I get aggravated, right? Because if you look at Central America, South America, the Caribbean, we're visiting those countries as tourists. We're contributing to the economy. We're here to enjoy you, enjoy your culture, visit, and leave, right? And there's this push to equate that to immigration, to illegal immigration specifically, that because we come there as tourists, that is the equivalent of illegal immigrants coming here to live and to take from the country without giving anything back, while they send money back home to their country. And I've long said, every country on earth has an inherent right to not only choose who they allow into their country, but to have a national identity that exists within itself, and to demand that anybody else joining that society assimilate to that culture.
Yeah.
That's the standard. If you were to go to Israel, they would demand the same thing. You go to Russia, they demand the same thing. You go to Africa, they demand the same thing, which is why in the military we learn customs. Mm-hmm. We learn the customs and the traditions and customs of the host culture that we're joining.
Yeah.
And the problems come from refusing to abide by those traditions and customs.
Yeah, 100%. And so these rioters in Mexico are actually rioting about legal tourism, because it's taking up their land and all these properties, all these beachfront properties or whatever. Juan, can you play that clip?
Gente que viene de otros países, en su mayoría extranjeros, a querer imponer su cultura, sus precios y desplazar a los mexicanos, a los nativos de estas tierras.
Vengo porque la gentrificación solo es un paso más a la colonización, a los despojos y a que exploten nuestros recursos.
Tema anticapitalista, antipatriarcal, anticlasista, proletaria.
En 5 años las rentas han subido 47%. Eso es algo violento para la población local. Nosotros nos estamos debatiendo entre pagar la luz, pagar el agua o comer. Entonces, por supuesto que preferimos comer.
Aunque aún tenga el sueño de querer un departamento donde vivir sola, pues realmente va a ser difícil. Por los precios.
Yeah, so if you're listening just to the audio podcast version of this, you're going to need to be Juan over here to know what they're saying. But but yeah, so they're protesting legal tourism in their country, and we're supposed to be anti-Christian for being against. We're not even protesting. We're just, we just voted for a president who's going to deport illegal invaders. Mm-hmm. They're not even immigrants. They're just invading the country. So I wanted to read this. This is actually there was Leviticus 19:33 I just read. Let me read you a couple more verses. Exodus 12:49. This is the law to Israel, again in the same context. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourns among you. Leviticus 24:22. You shall have the same rule for the sojourner and for the native, for I am the Lord your God. Numbers 15:15 through 16. One ordinance shall be both for you of the congregation, and also for the stranger that sojourneth with you. An ordinance forever in your generations, as ye are, so shall the stranger be before the Lord. One law and one manner, or one culture, shall be for you and for the stranger that sojourns with you. Deuteronomy 31:12. When all Israel is come to appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, thou shalt read this law before all Israel in their hearing. Gather the people together, men and women, children, and thy stranger that is within thy gates, that they may hear, that they may learn, and fear the Lord your God. So they're like, listen, not only do strangers who come into your land have to keep the law, they have to gather with you to hear the law so they know what it is and they keep it. Yep. So illegal immigration does not count.
No, because it is a violation of the law straight out from the get-go, and you have to continuously violate the law every single day to remain in the host country illegally.
Right. It's not like they accidentally cross the border and then they say, oh, I'm sorry, let me go back.
Yeah, and it's not like they're accidentally committing fraud every time they file a document or every time they get a job.
A job.
My company, we just fired a guy that turned out he lied on his application somehow. He's an illegal immigrant. He worked for us. He was a great employee for 5 years. And once everyone started cracking here in New Hampshire, we started cracking down along with ICE on illegal immigrants. He's like, oh, I don't think it's safe to come into the country, but do you have any other jobs in Massachusetts or into New Hampshire? But do you have any other jobs in Massachusetts? So I was like, no.
Yeah.
You're fired. I was like, oh, hell no, you're fired.
Right.
You lie. Not only are you an illegal immigrant and we don't support illegal immigration, that's a job that an American could have been taking out, or a legal immigrant could have been doing. But you also lied on your application, which is grounds for firing no matter what you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, you're gone. I'm sorry. I wish you best of luck, but you should go back to your home country.
Amen to that. Now, this is reminding me of what I was seeing earlier today. You heard about over the weekend the Charlie Kirk sort of sounded the alert that there are people in the administration pushing Trump towards an immigration
amnesty.
Amnesty. That's the word I'm looking for.
And an amnesty for farm workers and service workers.
Yeah, and then he sort of backtracked on that a bit today. And said, do we have the clip of what he said on the amnesty thing, Juan? I don't think I sent that to you. That's on me. That one's on me. But basically he said, no, it wasn't him. It was the press secretary.
Caroline Leavitt?
Yeah, Leavitt. So she said, I believe it was her. She said something to the effect of, and you guys are going to have to check me out on this because I'm going off memory. Something to the effect of, oh, no, there's going to be no amnesty. Basically, we're just going to deport in a certain order and try to make sure we don't leave a big hole in the workers so that we don't have, a food shortage in America. And so they're basically backtracking on this whole, because over the weekend, Trump was saying, hey, look, those radical right guys who want total deportation of all illegal immigrants, they're not going to be happy with me. And we're all like, wait, that's us. That's all of us.
I'm one of those radical right guys. I don't want any illegal immigrants in the country. I don't care whether you were here for 25 years or whether you're here for 2 months. Get the hell out.
Yeah, that's all of us.
I have zero. I used to be empathetic, right? I used to be like, all right, look, if you're coming from a war-torn country, you live in Mexico, you have the cartels who are constantly destroying your community. They're hanging journalists from bridges, chopping people up and putting them in tortilla barrels and stuff. I get it. The narcos run your country. I understand. you want to come here for a better opportunity. But the longer I've gone, the more I've gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what? I just don't care. I don't care, and I'm not required to care. I care about American citizens. I'm America first. And I couldn't care if every other country on the planet got wiped out tomorrow. I only care about Americans, and I care about America.
Yeah.
If you're an American, I care about you. If you're not American, I just don't care.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
the reality is,
I feel
I'm not
sad.
going to sacrifice American citizens for your benefits,
Right.
for your economic safety, for your future. I just don't care anymore.
There it is.
And at the same time, I'm also sitting here and I take the position that every single argument for illegal immigration can be made for legal immigration and fixing our immigration system.
Exactly.
Therefore, deport all illegal immigrants, and you guys can come in the right way, do things the right way, because I don't believe that this whole concept of having a permanent illegal underclass in society that cleans our toilets and mows our lawns and picks our fruit and vegetables and shit is even remotely a good thing.
Yeah.
When I hear the left make these arguments, which it always seems to be the ivory tower left that makes these arguments, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you live in a mansion. Who's going to clean your toilets? I was like, I clean my own toilets. I live in a house. I clean my toilets. I mow my own lawn. I friggin' vacuum my own house. I clean my own house. And I was like, you live in a mansion. They're cleaning your house. They're cleaning your toilets. They're mowing your lawns.
Right.
I was like, you don't like these people. And I've been around celebrities before. They don't freaking like the help. They don't
Yeah.
like the help. They
just-
look at them as the help.
They just like that they're cheap because they,
Yeah.
they're illegal. And that's the problem. See, that's the thing with saying, oh, the farmers need these guys. It's saying these farmers who have illegally hired and underpaid, undoubtedly underpaid these workers are somehow supposed to be rewarded for this? No.
Now, how would these? Now, let's be realistic. Would these farmers have to hire these illegal immigrants? Had California, like I'm sorry, my wife is from Fallbrook, California, avocado capital of the world. Her parents used to own an avocado grove. They don't hire illegal immigrants. And the big thing that I've always said is California has constantly made working in California a burden on the employer. So we're gonna vote state top down, regardless of industry, to increase healthcare benefits. We're gonna lower the threshold for a full-time worker from 36 hours to 34 hours to 32 hours. We're gonna increase the minimum wage. I watched the same day, within the same month that they passed the increase in minimum wage when I was out there, 2011. No, I'm sorry, 2015, before I moved back home. I watched them pass the new minimum wage and the new benefits and the new work hours and stuff. And what I saw was all the fast food restaurants immediately start pivoting towards automation like that. It was like, one, piss poor planning, right? Time-wise, piss poor planning. Automation was already increasingly becoming more feasible. Now you're going to make the push to increase the minimum wage, which all you did was price out a lot of these low wage workers that would have otherwise taken those place, whether illegal or legal.
Right.
And then on top of it, when they decreased the threshold for full-time workers, what they actually ended up doing was, more people technically qualified to be a full-time worker and therefore qualified for benefits, but just because you qualify or just because you are a full-time worker now, there is a cost per employee that each employer has to pay. I mean, they have to pay your benefits, they have to pay insurance, they have to pay payroll taxes and things like that. So your wage is not the only thing that calculates into your value or cost to that company. Now, the reality is you're not flipping enough burgers to make $25 an hour. I'm sorry. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Especially not to get $25 an hour plus healthcare, plus payroll taxes.
Yeah, but you
plus
shouldn't even be
dental.
sorry about that because, these are people, this is not a job for a career, right?
No.
This is not a job for a husband with a family of 6. Okay,
So-
this is a starter job to get you through high school or the college or something like
So
that.
all they did was they made it so that a lot of these low wage workers their hours got cut to where they were well within the part-time range.
Now there are
working
no
20
starter
hours
jobs.
a week. Yep, and they had to take on 2 jobs
Yeah.
to get their 40 hours a week. I go, so now you just screwed them. Not only do they not get benefits, they have to now transport themselves to another place of business so they can get yet another job where they're also not getting benefits and stuff.
Yeah.
And so you increase the cost and so that they can do the same amount of work where they can get paid less and get less value out of it.
Right.
And then you have to make your schedules match up between your 2 employers. And guess what? As an employer, I don't have to care that you have another employer. I just don't have to give a shit. You
Yeah.
can either do the job or you can't. And if you can't, I'll find someone who will.
But I got to think that a lot of these farms, coming back to the immigration thing, I got to think that a lot of these farms that are complaining are not in California. I mean, that's not our biggest farm state, is it? I mean, I know they've got farms there.
No, it's California, it's Texas, it's New Mexico, Arizona, all throughout the Midwest, especially throughout the South. And I mean, we have illegal immigrants over the past 2 decades that have been transported all over the country. You go to Chicago, you find illegal immigrants everywhere. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why Trump got as high of a proportion of the black vote is he did this cycle because they were housing illegal immigrants in school gymnasiums and in hotels.
Well, they're up here in Boston. I mean, if they're here in Boston, they got to be all over. Right?
Hell, we got them in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I mean, they put them up in hotels in New Hampshire. It's here. And nobody is untouched by this at this point because they've built an entire infrastructure around creating this continuous underclass that will do the things we don't want to do. I was like, that's funny. I remember once upon a time, Democrats had the exact same arguments about a different group of people.
Yeah.
And I remember we kind of fought a really big war over that. Maybe stop making the exact same argument and realize everything that drove up the cost of living and made it expensive to live in the United States was done by government. Every monopoly and cartel that has existed has been created with the help of government. You can't name one that hasn't existed with the help of government regulation, politicians, cronies in D.C. who are willing to help them out in order to win their next campaign or to get a buck.
Yeah. Everything government touches, it ruins. And I think we're in agreement here that the main thing we've got to do with immigration is make sure that the people coming here love this country, are willing to follow the laws, and are ready and prepared to integrate themselves into the country.
Which means we got to get rid of mass immigration because one of the big cultural things is every time there's been a wave of mass immigration in the United States, it creates a cultural backlash because now that group, they don't settle and assimilate to the culture that they're in. They settle in an enclave and they carve out a little area where they don't have to integrate, and then it creates animosity between the host culture and the culture that has settled in the area but refuses to assimilate into the host culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to think that it was kind of ugly to say, hey, look, if you're here, you got to learn our language. But how do you integrate into a culture when you aren't required to learn the language? You ought to. I mean, first of all, our people ought to be taught English better. I think that's a whole another issue. Our American people ought to be taught American history better. But someone coming to our country ought to be taught American history. Ought to love this country as it is, not want to change it. Not be. Otherwise, they're really enemies.
And I also agree with the old school laws. You can't come here if you're a communist.
Yeah.
You can't come here if you're a communist, a fascist, a socialist.
Yeah.
Keep that shit wherever you like. When I say I'm against illegal immigration and I'm against mass immigration, I don't care what color you are. I don't care whether you come from Europe. I don't care what continent you come from. If you're coming to America, come to America because you love America. Don't come to America and try to turn America into the country you left. And sure as hell don't come here and wave the flag of the country you left over our flag.
Yeah. And also don't run for mayor of New York City.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God, that guy.
Well, we've just about run out of time here for this segment. We'll be right back with Chris Bugard, filmmaker who has been covering everything going out there down in Texas and the flooding, the deaths, all that stuff. So looking forward to talking to him. And so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
All right.
Not everyone can get up every day and look for ways to piss people off. But here at GraniteGrok.com, we do that almost every day. I can't tell you how many times someone's lost their SHIT and threatened to end us. But we're still here, pissing people off. It's almost like we enjoy it. And we've been doing it since 2006. That's almost 2 decades of news, politics, and opinion, and now podcasts, and we're just getting started. We believe in principles before parties and politicians. We defend free markets and individual liberty, and if that makes you mad, it makes us smile. We're like Grandma after she stopped caring what other people thought. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Aceyard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aceyard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble. Welcome back to Granite State Live for the smooth sounds of New Hampshire jazz. All right.
You got a great voice for that. So we're talking about the stuff going on in Texas, the flood down in the hill country. I mean, I don't know. Where's the hill country in Texas? Is that along the border?
I have no idea. Texas is such a big state. I've spent days driving through it.
North of San Antonio.
Okay.
So I guess between San Antonio and Dallas? In Austin. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got these. I asked Grok AI just a little bit ago the totals here. Something like 109 have been confirmed dead people in these floods. 173 are still missing. And they have confirmed something like 800 rescues, where the National Guard have rescued something like 850 people. But that camp, that girls' camp,
yep.
I'm getting two different numbers. One says 27, another says 30 are confirmed dead from the camp.
That is sad.
Including the camp director who died trying to get girls out of there. 11 girls are still missing. And from that county, there's been something like 500 people rescued from Kerr County. But this is something I'm praying for the Camp Mystic down there, the girls there, and so I'm very interested to talk to our next guest, which is Chris Bugard. Chris Bugard is the director of that film, Capital Punishment, and he joins us today. He's been covering what's been going on down in Texas. Chris, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Oh, I'm humbled. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's well, we're all very, very grateful for the work you're doing down there in Texas. Here, all the way up in New Hampshire, we're just trying to catch whatever information we can get on Twitter. It's not Twitter anymore; it's X. Or, whatever we're doing. But tell us what you're seeing and what's going on down there.
So this is what we call the hill country down here. It's kind of like South Central Texas. It's beautiful down here. I mean, Kerrville is beautiful. It's near Fredericksburg. It's some of the prettiest parts of Texas. And so you have the Guadalupe River, and the Guadalupe River is beautiful. People go there to camp. Remember, this is 4th of July weekend. And yeah, you had Camp Mystic on there, which was a girls' camp that was hit. And then a little bit farther downriver, you had Camp La Junta, which is where I spent most of yesterday. They were hit really hard. Most of the camp is gone now. The numbers that you just talked are pretty close to what we're hearing down here. It's pretty close to what Governor Abbott just put out. But this is really fluid, and I compare this to the 2 weeks we spent in New Hampshire after the storm last fall. I'm sorry, New Hampshire. Y'all are New Hampshire. Sorry, it's a long day. My brain's glitching.
Yep.
North Carolina.
Carolina.
Yeah.
We're in North Carolina. And we were doing body recovery down there, and that's what we've been doing here the last 2 days. Some of these people, I'm afraid, we're just never going to find. And how many we're not going to find is, I don't know.
Do you have any idea?
Working with,
Is it? Do you have a lot of hope for people who are still missing at this point that you might find them still alive, or?
You know what? I prefer you didn't ask me that question. I get out in the river, and there's families still out there holding on to their hope. I don't want to take it.
Sure,
I understand.
I'll just tell you that I'm working with our His Glory team is down here, and we're working with another team called Heroes for Humanity. They're former and active military personnel, some special forces guys, just great tactical guys, certified divers. So they pulled a mom and her baby out of a camper day before yesterday. 2 more bodies this morning, yesterday morning. Today, one of our girls was with the group, and they found part of a body. I mean, this is just what you're going to see, and it's hot down here, and but some of these remains are buried so deep that even the cadaver dogs go past them, and we don't have enough cadaver dogs. So that's what we're going to continue doing down here. But remember, besides the camps, the kids' camps, we had RV parks, and you had campers here. It's a tourist area. And these camps, like we were at Blue Oak RV camp, it's gone. I mean, we were there all this morning. They pulled 2 folks out of there, like I said, the day before yesterday. Today was all, it's all recovery. It's cutting up the trees. It's bringing in dozers and skid steers, grappling and trying to get the snags out of there. Vehicles, trucks, SUVs, campers, trailers. They've been pulling all that stuff out. And until you see what the power of a flood like this can do, it defies imagination. I'm sorry, I should have sent you some B-roll ahead of time, but imagine huge concrete slabs, 2.5 feet thick, rebar, just tossed around like tiddlywinks and broken. Wow. There was one snag yesterday. I was sitting there and smelling the smell of decomp, and I see part of a truck through the snag. When I say snag, it's like whether you hit a bridge or a tree, it's just all the debris coming down, mostly trees with stuff wrapped up in it, and it just hits and it snags, and it's just, they get bigger and deeper. And I see part of a truck through there, and I get closer and I see, okay, there's also a trailer. Oh, wait, the truck is so compressed, it doesn't even look like a truck anymore, and there's another vehicle stuck to the front of it. It looks like it might have been a Toyota or something, and the smell is really bad. And I get around the front of the vehicle, and there's a dead cow upside down that's decomposing. And I got to tell you, I was never so happy to see a dead cow, and that's coming from a guy that lives in. It was just a relief. But that's I'm just sharing that kind of raw thing with you, because this is happening all up and down 50 miles of river.
Yeah.
And it's so sad, the disaster here and what's happened, but at the same time, it's so inspiring, the help that are down here. Oh my gosh. I mean, yesterday we had dinner from a church from Dallas that drove all the way down. These kids, the church came down. Today, lunch at the Emergency Operations Center was a volleyball team from a school that had come in, and their PTA, and they were serving, chicken fajitas. It's just people just coming down to pray with people coming down that haven't been in the military for years, but they're like, I have this skill, or I used to be a medic. Put me where you need me. Firefighters from all over the country. There was search and rescue we were with today from Oklahoma came down. It just lifts you up and just makes you feel so proud, to see American people at work and see the heart of America. But then you turn around and you see someone's house is gone. They're going through the mud looking for pieces of clothing or their sister-in-law, and then your heart just sinks again.
Yeah. Wow. That it's so it's interesting to me being up here in New Hampshire, being so far away from it, and all of these numbers aren't as personal to me, but to hear your story, to know what you're going through, really is impactful to me personally. We know that we serve a God who works miracles. We know that that there may be many, many more that you're able to rescue, and I certainly pray for that. What kind of toll does this kind of thing, this is not the first time you've done this kind of work, what kind of toll does this take on you as you're trying to sort of mentally prepare yourself to go out the next day and to recover whatever you can recover, and how does that affect you?
So, just to be clear, I didn't get here until day before yesterday, so a lot of the heaviest lifting has already been done by the people that were here first. I can't speak for all the first responders down here. I can tell you for me, the toll it takes is a good one because you feel like you're helping. Like these people have been through so much. If you can even bring them a little bit of closure, it's what moved us in North Carolina. If we could find somebody's grandfather, bring closure to that family, we were doing something good. Yesterday, I was almost knocked over. There's a fella down here. He's one of the co-leaders for Heroes for Humanity, John Taylor. This is a tough guy. This former Marine, recon Marine, just go-to guy, right? He's a certified diver, and we were at Camp La Junta, and he just started praying, and we brought everybody in and started praying, and just we're sitting with people that are looking for their family members that they can't stop crying, and to be able to sit and pray with them, that even if it's offer just a few minutes of solace to bring God's help to them in some way, it's just it doesn't take a toll on you. It just
Wow. Yeah. I'm wondering also too, as you're down there, I mean, not to jump around, but what are some things that you're thinking could potentially save lives in the future? What are some things that could have been done, or maybe could be done in the future to try to prevent this kind of tragedy? It just seemed to happen so quickly. At least up here, the news just came in, and all of a sudden, there's floods. It's like it came out of nowhere. What are your thoughts on preventing this?
This wasn't even 100-year flood. No one has ever seen anything like what just happened here. I mean, a river rising, I'm not the meteorological expert, but to come up 26 feet in a matter of an hour or two in the middle of the night, no one has ever seen this. You couldn't prepare for that. I mean, if you saw there's campgrounds that are right on the riverbanks there, but so many of these houses are 20 feet above the river. Some of them are on stilts. But you walk by these houses and you look up in the trees, and there's mattresses in the trees above you. Here's a pair of guys' underwear that is 40 feet above where the river is. You can't prepare for that sort of an occurrence. I don't really, if everybody's looking for somebody to blame on this, blame the storm. And I live in East Texas. In East Texas, if it's rain and storm and you don't like the weather, you wait 15 minutes. It'll change. That's how Texas is. This storm hovered. I mean, it just hovered. And I've never seen a storm do that before in my life.
Well, there's a lot of people trying to cast blame, and we saw the early warnings go out, and from what I was hearing from people in Texas and the area, the early warnings went out, everything went out by the book, and just there is no way to prepare for the level of devastation that happened in a blink of an eye. There's no early warning system that can prepare you for a 26-foot flood coming down the river right outside of your house, or taking your house off of its foundations like that.
None that I know of.
Yeah. So now
and
go ahead.
and this is the whole area around here too. It's this is the Guadalupe is where the most damage was done. But even getting down there, like roads being washed out, bridges gone. It's affected the whole area. Like I said, it's not something we've seen. We're used to floods. We're used to flash floods, but something like this, we've never seen this before.
What do you think the rebuild time will be? You think this is going to be years before this area is back up, to the way it used to be?
You're talking to somebody that used to live in California, and their friends in the Palisades still haven't been able to rebuild their houses. However, this is Texas. This isn't California. This isn't North Carolina. I think people will be rebuilding as soon as the insurance money they start getting there. I mean, just driving up and down the road along the river, you see the families in there just working so hard, cleaning the mud out, drying out rugs. And I'm not cutting down North Carolina, but I just want to compare the differences. In North Carolina, we got there 5 days after the storm, 5 days a week, something like that after the storm, and worked for a week with folks locally that there was no government help from anybody. It was just people helping people, the churches helping the community, and that's what got things done. Here in Texas, it's just the different. Help was here within hours, and it's still pouring in. There is plenty of help on the ground here, and the spirit in Texas is so go-to. I saw yesterday, some guys are working a recovery team and doing some stuff, and they're in a gator at the side-by-side, and it's being driven by kids either 9 or 11 years old, no older. But this is a Texas ranch kid, stepped up, was helping his dad. His dad was on the team, just getting things done. So when you have that kind of fortitude, when you have that kind of will, I think that you're going to see scars. I mean, you look at Hunt, downtown Hunt on the river is pretty destroyed. But I think we'll be back really well in a year. But again, I'm just guessing, man. I'm just the guy that lives on a ranch and tells stories and gets to make movies. I can't put a meter on the fortitude and the logistics of rebuilding down here, but I don't think it's going to be that long. This is history down here. These camps have been here forever, and this is Texas. Texans are no disrespect to the rest of the country, but Texans are just different, and we get stuff done.
Yeah. Now you told us that which is still just shocking to me and impressive to me that this is being a part of this is really encouraging your soul because you're able to help and be a part of this. Are there any moments that you can share with the audience, maybe a specific thing that just really moved you that you were able to be a part of?
It moved me, but it didn't have the happy ending that I wanted. Praying with a family that was missing a family member, and just to strengthen that family, just their attitude and their fortitude, but not being able to help the kids that were wondering. That's the one thing that stuck with me so far. I wish I had a happier moment there with you. I don't.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, though. Working with all these military guys down here, it's outstanding for them because you have the United States government spends millions of dollars training these personnel, and then they get out of the service, they go into, a lot of them into civilian jobs. A disaster comes along, booyah, baby. They're using all the skills and the training that Uncle Sam gave them, and they are so grateful to be back on mission and protecting Americans. It's just, that's a really cool thing to see. And I've been surrounded like that by that the whole time we've been down here.
Yeah. Now, what would you do? What would you say to someone here in New Hampshire who says, "Man, I want to help"? Either maybe they can help you, maybe they can help other people who are on the ground. Maybe it's monetary, maybe it's sharing something, some link or something for others to help. What can we do to be a part of that?
I know His Glory. We did this in North Carolina. We raised money, and and sent it down there to different organizations, groups. I know they're doing that now. Heroes for Humanity, you could donate there. The one place you could get there the fastest, if I could recommend this, if you have time, Google the Hunt Volunteer Fire Department. There's a fire chief down there, Chief Lee, and as fast as stuff is coming in, he's getting it out to people. So that's where I would direct people to go to if they want to get their stuff there the quickest. His Glory will be helping folks out there too. You know, we help people on the ground in the middle of everything, North Carolina, and then we were able to build some cottages for folks that didn't have a roof over their head. So we'll see what we can do down here. But Chief Lee, Hunt, Texas, HUNT.
Now, what made you specifically, because you traveled all the way to North Carolina. You just said you're an East Texas boy. You traveled all the way to North Carolina to help in North Carolina, and then you travel across the state to go help over here in where you guys are at, just north San Antonio. What made you get into helping? What hit your spirit?
Because I'm blessed to work for His Glory Ministries. The last 20 years, you know, I grew up. I grew up, you know, on a horse farm in Wisconsin, and moved to California and had a fun career in Hollywood. Then I got blacklisted, and I made a movie about the border called Border, which screened for Congress in 2007. And then that led to me doing a lot of my career seemed to be making movies in places where people weren't getting the truth, whether it be Central America they tried to Marxist overthrow a country down there, or whether it be on the border, or whether it be in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. And I made a movie called Capital Punishment about January 6th. Didn't plan on doing it, but we did, to tell the truth. And then that got me investigated as a terrorist threat to the United States of America for making a movie, which I took personal because when the FBI came to my ranch, my dad graduated in the 109th session of the FBI Academy. So that wasn't real fun. So at the same time, people are saying, make a sequel, make a sequel. Well, God comes down and gives me the material to make the sequel, because if they were doing this, you know, to me, what are they doing to everybody else out there? So we made the movie The War on Truth with His Glory Ministry. And His Glory Ministry asked me to come on board with them. And it's that organization that allows me to be here. And if you could see behind me, we've got 2 His Glory trucks. We've got 2 side-by-sides. My truck's right here. My guys are grabbing some shut-eye in the cabin here. That's because of His Glory Ministry. That's because of God. Put us in a place where, okay, there's a disaster. We need you. Guys, get down there. Stay down there as long as you want. Keep doing good. Let us know what's going on. That's just a blessing. I didn't plan my career this way. That's just a blessing from God that allows me to be there and to do that. And I can't thank Him enough. I just can't. And if you ever told me I'd be 63 years old working for the Lord, I would have thought you were crazy, but here I am.
You're 63?
Yes, sir.
You don't look 63.
Well, you call my wife and tell her that. I'm hoping I get home this weekend and say, hey, honey, I look good for 63. They told me on TV. So.
Yeah, you certainly don't look your age. You look like you're right in the thick of it.
I think when you lead a purpose-driven life, it just allows you to do that. I mean, when I tell you I've been blessed, I mean, I've been so blessed. I was diagnosed with leukemia 4.5 years ago, and I talked to God. I'm not dying of leukemia. I don't lose 20 minutes of sleep over it.
All right, there you go.
Well, we really I personally I can say that I think the world of you for what you're doing, and man, our prayers are with you. We want you to know that it's not just thoughts, but it's prayers that go with you as you go out there, and we're really praying for the people of Texas. So we want to thank you for all that you're doing.
Fellas, please, the prayers. Thank you so much for the prayers. Your words are humbling. I'm this much of. There are so many more people out here that deserve praise and honor, and just keep the prayers coming for all them, will you please? That's the best thing y'all could do.
Yeah, Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for joining the show today.
Where
You
can
betcha. God bless.
where can people find you guys? Find you, follow you, support his ministries, his glory ministries.
Hisglory.me. That's where you can find us.
All right.
Hisglory.me.
Everybody go donate, offer your prayers. If you're in the area, offer your time. If you have resources, offer resources. Please support the work they're doing, whether it's their movie making or them getting out on the ground and actually saving American citizens after a disaster. Obviously, this is an organization that deserves every ounce of our support. So make sure you get out there and you do that as soon as possible, because we want to make America great again. It's got to be all of us. None of us can take a seat on the bench on this one.
Absolutely. God called to show up. That's all you got to do. Show up.
That's right. Chris Bugard, thanks for joining us on Granite State Live today.
All right.
Yeah, his story is so impressive to me. I really am impressed. Not just what he's doing, but where he came from. Because the grind of Hollywood is you got to take whatever show you can get, which is usually not.
Yep.
Great for your soul.
And if you're a producer or a writer, you're constantly getting shut down. There's a lot of people trying to shut down good content in Hollywood. Anything that doesn't fit the narrative. I know multiple actors in Hollywood that have been blacklisted and kicked out of Hollywood because they wouldn't, follow the yellow brick road,
right,
per se.
So God steps into his life, sort of yanks him out of the life that he was in, and now he's out serving God with ministry for his life. I mean, this is just incredible. What a story!
It's the type of stuff that if you didn't believe before, you damn well should now.
Yeah, right. And by the way, there are so many Christians with stories like that. Mm-hmm. And I know Dave would certainly say that. I say Dave Scarlett is the pastor who started His Glory Ministries. And I've heard so many good things about this ministry, but also I'm sure Chris would agree with that as well. But my goodness, I think that's incredible. And to think there are so many Christians that are affected by this, like genuine, not just, they got the name Christian, but real. Yeah. That whole Camp Mystic was a Christian girls' camp.
Yeah. That's why it's such a shame to see, the reaction from people on the left and like lunatics saying that they wish harm on people.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here, like, we were discussing it before my last show, and I'm sitting here going, wait a minute. Weren't the Democrats trying to flip Texas to blue? They successfully got it to a purple state for a couple election cycles, which means at least 40% of the state are Democrats. And you're telling me that last I checked, those girls weren't wearing jerseys for Team Red or Team Blue. They're just little girls going to camp, and a disaster happened, and now they're suffering, and their friends are dying, their families are ripped apart, their communities are ripped apart, and you wish harm on them as if it's their fault and they deserve your ire. It's just it's blasphemous to me.
Yeah, shows their true colors.
Yep.
Coming up next, we have Jeff Dornick, the one and only. We can't wait to have him on the show, and we'll see you in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Aceyard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aceyard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving Southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Welcome back to Granite State Live, the home of smooth jazz and good conversations as we break down your political narratives on both sides of the aisle and deliver you the truth. I'm going to perfect that. I'm going to have that sexy 3 a.m. in the morning voice, that old school. Used to turn on the radio and he used to be like, all right, up next we have Erykah Badu coming with that smooth jazz, some soul.
Yeah, make sure you got that just perfect so that you can, surprise Keith with it when he gets back from. Where is Keith Wan? Is he somewhere in Europe, right? Ireland.
He's in Ireland. Oh God, he's not going to get arrested for posting something on social media, is he?
Probably will. You better be careful.
Might have to have you in the chair for a couple more weeks. Speaking of social media, talking about social media. Up next. Talking about social media and misinformation, we have Jeff Dornick, founder and CEO of Pickaxe, a groundbreaking social media platform built on two uncompromising principles: freedom of speech and freedom of reach. All right. This It is good to see you. It has been years since we got to see each other in person.
Yeah, I mean, it was what was it, back in Texas, and we went out for barbecue, and that was a fun time.
Yeah, it was a great time all the way up until all the young bucks started buying cigars for all of us older guys to try out, and they were buying crappy, nasty cigars. But we were being nice, We're trying to be graceful, accept the gift.
That was that time when Matt Couch brings all these people together in the middle of COVID, and it's like and even in Texas, everybody's in masks and scared and whatever it is, and then we just like come in here and take over this hotel and take over this town, and we're just like all of us just completely fearless, and it was a blast.
Yeah, to be clear, we're like, you guys need to wear masks. We're like, yeah, we're not doing that.
And to be clear, I was not there for whatever this is you're talking about. I don't want to be included in any of this. For the FBI that's listening into this conversation.
There were probably some FBI informants there. I can pretty much assure you that.
I know particularly of one.
I spoke to one, and it was a very enlightening conversation.
It was. We had a lot of great conversations that week. Colonel Rob Maness was there. We had a stacked stage. We had great pastors. We had great speakers. Good conversation. The crowd was great. It was a good week. By the end of the week, I had lost my voice. So on the final night when we were singing karaoke, I just didn't have it. And I had been. I had been bragging all week too.
But that's the thing. I feel like we need more of that human to human connection, and I feel like for whatever reason in today's society, and a big part of that is social media. Is like we're all separated. We all talk virtually, but a lot of times we don't have that in person connection. And just like we were talking about, it's like when you're at one of these events, it's not necessarily about who's on the stage, who's talking, what they're saying. A lot of it is just it's an excuse to all get together and actually communicate and pick each other's brains. And I remember sitting next to you at the barbecue, and we're just like, I'm just picking your brain about about politics in New Hampshire and like what's actually going on, and what's the difference between that and what my worldview is. And I find that those kinds of events I feel like we need more of, so that way we can have more of those kinds of just off the cuff conversations that a lot of times we don't get if we're just Twitter bombing everything.
I also think that the way that was set up, for reference, the stage, we had chairs sat on stage, and they were set in sort of like a curve. We could all see each other. We could all talk across to each other. And it was more of a conversational tone, not like CPAC, get up, do your speech, go, and then there's going to be an after party later tonight for the movers and shakers. It was more interpersonal, and then we were also able to engage with the crowd, and we were able to talk to the people in the area, and we would go out for dinner and drinks, and it was a really, really good time. It was very communal. It was community oriented. It was fantastic. I think that's one of my favorite events so far.
Yeah, no, I would say honestly, like my two favorite events that I've done was that one in Texas that Matt Couch put together along with Pastor Gibson and Greg Locke, and then I went recently spoke at an event up in New York that Shannon Joy put together, and literally all she did, it was like an all day thing, but she basically just put together 2 panels, maybe 3 panels, and she just put everybody on stage. And like mine was talking about like technology and all that. It was like me, Naomi Wolf, Aaron Day, Sasha Latapova, and we just sat there and talked for like an hour and a half on stage, and you really get to know each other. And then you're hanging out afterwards, and you're kind of picking everybody's brain. I didn't think I'd be able to sit down and talk to people like Mary Holland from Children's Health Defense and Naomi Wolf and all these people where you're just like, these are kind of like the top of their field. These are like some of the smartest people, and you can just sit around and pick their brain and get their insight in ways that you wouldn't get without those kinds of more, I think, panel events where you're actually kind of building rapport with each other. And again, I keep saying this, I feel like we need more of that as opposed to just showing up and hearing a prepared 40-minute speech from somebody.
I completely agree. I mean, the conversation, we had a veterans panel, and then we had a minority outreach panel, and both panels were just pure fire. I mean, we were talking solutions. It wasn't the typical talking points, owning the libs or anything like that. We cracked some jokes here and there, but for the most part, we were talking about how to actually change things and to save America and put us right back on the right path. And I think the dialogue when it comes to social media has completely degraded how we interact with each other. And the only saving grace so far is X Spaces. You can actually have some sort of dialogue and you can have real candid conversations, but you always have those people who, because you're online and there's no, I like to say, what is it? Jordan Peterson says underlying every interaction between men is the possibility that it devolves to violence should proper respect not be shown. And on social media, that is perfect example of a lot of people saying a lot of stuff that they would never say in person. And I know because I've met them in person, and they wouldn't say that shit because I can reach you right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's a great segue. And so I wanted to just jump in here real quick. We're talking to Jeff Dornick, by the way, CEO of Pickaxe. And Jeff, just real quick, I want to say that talking to Julian does not give you a good idea of what everyone in New Hampshire is like. I want to be very clear about that. But on the subject of social media, tell us about Pickaxe. What is this? Is it launched? Is it going? What's the goal here?
Yeah, definitely. So we're launched on the web version right now. So it's technically we're kind of in pre-launch phase. In about 6 to 8 weeks, we're launching the app. And then that's kind of when we do our official launch. We're doing a big marketing campaign, advertising, all that kind of stuff. But it's basically kind of a hybrid between X and Substack, and we're really leaning very heavily into a lot more of the long form content. So obviously you can post your normal posts and all that kind of stuff, but then you can write articles directly in the platform. You can also connect your Rumble channel to your Pickaxe account and to automatically post on Pickaxe, and then the videos are actually playable in the newsfeed, and they'll actually be playable within the app's newsfeed as well, which I don't think that there's any other social media platform where the Rumble videos are actually playable within the ecosystem of an app. I think Truth Social, they do it just on the web version. We got a workaround to where we can actually do it in the app as well, to where you can watch your favorite Rumble creators live in the newsfeed. But one of the things that I'm really trying to do is lean very heavily into engaging, and so a lot of my target audience is center left to center right. A lot of it is because you can have a lot more of those nuanced conversations about things. And so you can write a full article. One of the things that we're going to be rolling out in the pretty near future is to where if you see an article, you could reply with your own article, and then we'll figure out a way to kind of thread them all together to where then you could see different replies to different things, where it's a nuanced, again, conversation. You can expand on things. You could write 3 pages worth of content if you want, as opposed to just these quick hit fire bombs that you see on Twitter, where it just devolves into insults and personal smears and attacks. And so I'm really leaning heavily more into the long form content, which will, I'm sure, kind of significantly impact our growth in the sense of, the fire bombs are what drives traffic and engagement. But also, I think we can really get a good core group of people on there that are actually thinking, and then we can slowly grow out from there and really foster actual communication and conversation. And then we're also going to be working on doing some in-person events and things like that to kind of bridge that gap between the online world and the in-person world as well, to where, again, we're not just insulting each other from afar. Now you're going to actually be running into the people that you see online. Maybe you're not going to throw those insults as much if you know you're going to see them in 2 months.
I absolutely love that. Yeah. Like, sign me up, because I do a lot of writing articles, and I post my articles on X, and X isn't really geared towards article traffic, at least not original article traffic, which you would think would be the exact opposite. You'd think because you're posting an original article on their platform that the algorithm would actually incentivize that, but it does incentivize a lot of the opposite. And despite Elon taking over, I am seeing a lot of accounts who are shadow banned, and I'm seeing, more to your point, freedom of speech and freedom of reach. I like a lot of the freedom of speech on X, but I don't see a lot of the freedom of reach on X.
I like what you say about actual thinking too, because that's what this is my problem with X. It's my problem with TikTok. It's my problem with all of this, because it's all about this hot take, this really quick snippet. And you hear this one little statement really shortly, and you just think, oh, now I know what everyone else doesn't know. All of a sudden, and you've never actually taken time to think about it. You're like 2% skeptical and 98% just accepting whatever you hear. and you haven't ever stopped and thought, well, am I going to be skeptical about that thing? And you never think through these things. So actual careful thought is the one thing that's, I think, missing on social media. Can you, Jeff, do you have a mechanism to force people to actually read what you wrote before they respond to it?
Yeah, well, so there's probably some way that we can actually encourage that kind of a thing.
I was joking, but that's awesome.
Yeah, so there's a few different things that I've actually been toying with because a lot of times what happens, and let's say I'll post one of my articles, that I write on Pickaxe or on Substack, and I post it on Twitter, and immediately everybody replies, and I'm like, clearly you did not read what I actually said, because it was a much more nuanced conversation, and all you're looking at is the headline, right?
Right.
So one of the things that I think that we could actually do is make it to where, and I've been talking with my tech team on, okay, how do we structure this to kind of differentiate the different kinds of posts and all that is, if let's say you have an article that you post, maybe the only way you can actually reply to that is if you actually open the article and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, as opposed to just making it to where somebody could see the headline and just reply before even opening it. So there could be some actually some mechanisms that we could implement. Again, they're not implemented right now, but down the road, I've already been thinking through that, because I'm like, how do you foster nuanced conversations when you have people that don't even read the articles before they respond?
That is something I've run into so often. I've written, obviously, I do a lot of discussions about Black outreach and how to come together on solutions, and people will see a headline and they'll be like, oh, you're just another one of those Candace Owens types who trashes Black people. I'm like, I wrote an article giving data and actual solutions on how to fix fatherlessness and thug culture, how to minimize the negative things in society and propagate more positive things in society. Like, here's the data, here's the research, here's everything. And they see the headline and immediately jump to the comments. And I'm like, did you read the article? Well, no, I don't need to. I go block. Yeah, we're like right there. Block.
But also to piggyback off of that too, and I think this is I think that this is a really important point, is that I think the other knee jerk reaction that a lot of times we have is everybody's reacting based upon what your team identity is, whether it's Democrat, yes, Republican, MAGA, not MAGA, fill in the blank. And I'm trying to kind of get away from that. I think going, again, with the long form content, we can begin to kind of get away from those emotional reactions to your identity. Because to me, we shouldn't be finding our identity in your favorite politician, in your political party, or anything like that. You need to figure out your worldview. And for me as a Christian, that's rooted in the Bible, and it's also rooted in the Constitution when it comes to politics and how we govern ourselves. But to me, you need to figure out your worldview. And then when you look at everything else, it just begins to make sense, because everything's falling into place because you're grounded in something. What I'm seeing happen right now is people are being swayed to and fro depending on what their political party is or what their favorite politician is saying, i.e. Donald Trump, which is the big thing right now. I think a perfect example of that right now, what we're seeing is the response to the big, beautiful bill, which you're seeing insane amounts of spending to, and then also the response today over Jeffrey Epstein. I can't tell you how many conservative MAGA, influencers are immediately just being like, oh yeah, let's put that in the past. Let's just forget that. Not that big of a deal. Let's just move on because Trump said that. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, but what are the implications of that? If we don't actually get into the root issues, let's fix this thing, at the root issues, we're not going to get down to the fact that it's not just about the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was blackmailing world leaders. It was that he was blackmailing them on behalf of intelligence agencies, whether you're talking about Mossad or the CIA or the FBI or whatever. Like, that's something that we have to deal with because our own government is involved in sex trafficking in order to compromise world leaders, in order to control world events. And we're just sitting here like, oh yeah, let's just move on. Why are we still talking about this? That's the most ridiculous thing. But if you're playing follow the leader and you're just following whatever Trump says, of course you're going to move on, because he said, why are we even still talking about this today? But for me, I'm looking at this like, okay, but what are the broader implications of this? Yeah. It's a much more nuanced conversation, but nobody's willing to have it because it all comes down to team identity.
See, I would have, and I'm right there with you. I never expected to get the Epstein list, mostly on the simple fact that as soon as we started to hear there were heads of state that the men who run the wealthiest and most powerful corporations and industries in the world were on his plane, on his island, and his staff admitted that there were cameras and audio wired throughout his house to blackmail people. And then on top of it, you're telling me that all of Hollywood is involved, the majority of the media is somehow involved, and we have past presidents and even royalty that have gone to his island. That right there, the national security and diplomatic implications of even releasing a list like that, I already was skeptical that it was ever going to happen. But I think what pissed me off about this more than anything was the playing in our face, saying that you had the list sitting on your desk, saying that you know that they were blackmailing people, saying that you know that there were heads of state, that these guys from major corporations were there, that these industry leaders were there. You know that there was a sex trafficking ring. Ghislaine Maxwell got locked up for something. It wasn't to sex traffic people to nobody. So you're telling me that it exists for years now, and then when it comes time to actually release it, now you're saying that it never existed, and that really what we're talking about is child, and I'm like, I would have respected you more if you're like, hey, just sheerly due to the national security implications of this, we can't release this to the public. I would have understood that at a basic pragmatic level, but I want to see that you are actually investigating people, that there are actually going to be ramifications for this. And I understand we can't go around, kidnapping heads of state in the middle of the night and locking them up and friggin' Gitmo or anything. But, I would have appreciated some level of candor in this instead of the gaslighting that has gone on for the past 72 hours of, I know we said it happened. I know we spent years investigating this. And even though it wasn't a part of Agenda 47, it was still a promise that was made on the campaign trail after years and years of talking about this. And then it got dropped like it never happened. And we're all supposed to pretend like we just didn't spend years talking about this, screaming that there needs to be accountability for these people who are unaccountable. They're untouchable.
But Julian, let me interrupt you here because I have a very unpopular take on this, and a lot of people I'm sure will disagree with me. But in my opinion, the Epstein Files, let's say the list, whatever you want to call it, to me, that's a distraction from the real crime. Like, I'm not necessarily saying we need to go around and arrest every single person that's in Epstein's black book. I don't think we need to go. I'm not saying that we need to go arrest foreign heads of state and expose all of like yes, what they did was absolutely horrific. But you know what's more horrific? The fact that our government was involved in actually allowing and encouraging and making the sex trafficking happen through Jeffrey Epstein, in order to compromise the leaders. So and again, I don't want to paint too broad of a brush, and I'm not minimizing what these world leaders did by any means, because what they did was absolutely horrific. But also at the same time, they were being blackmailed by our own government, who was enabling and causing sex trafficking of minors to actually happen in order to compromise these leaders. To me, that's the real crime. And for me, the fact that they're kind of glossing over this, everybody's focusing on the list. Everybody's focusing on these world leaders that were blackmailed. I'm looking at who were the blackmailers. Jeffrey Epstein was doing this on behalf of intelligence agencies, and the fact that we're just sweeping under the rug and basically gaslighting the American people and saying this didn't happen means that we're not going to have the arrests, means that we're not going to actually fix the CIA and the intelligence agencies and what we're actually doing, because this is just going to continue. And if you think that this was just Jeffrey Epstein, you have another thing coming. I guarantee you, Diddy was doing the exact same thing for the government. The more that I look into Hugh Hefner was doing the exact same thing as well.
Allison Mack back in 2010, Ghislaine Maxwell, Harvey Weinstein. Yeah. Like, there's a long list of these people. And what's crazy to me is that it took so long for everyone to start actually cracking down. And honestly, what it took was social media for us to crack down on this stuff.
And Jeff, I hate to cut in because this is a great conversation. I'd like to let it go on for another hour, but we are running out of time, and I wanted you to tell us a little bit about the new book that I think we could even pre-order it now, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Following the Leader. Tell us, what is that about? What's the point of that, and why should people go out and get that?
Yeah, definitely. So we're gonna be releasing it this fall. Still kind of finalizing everything. It's taking me a lot longer than I thought to write it, just because of all the research that's going into it. But the entire premise of the book, it kind of stems from a chapter that I wrote in a previous book called Church and State, where I dove into the evangelical cult of personality, and so what I wrote about that. And then I expanded it into politics and into our entire society, because I'm seeing the same things happening. Everybody's identifying with their favorite leader. And, like we were kind of talking about before. Well, I realized that a lot of these tactics that are being employed to make this happen are the exact same tactics that the cults actually use. People like Charles Manson, people like Jim Jones, Scientology, you could just fill in the blank with all these cults. They used a lot of these same coercive propaganda, brainwashing tactics. Well, then you start looking and you're like, well, a lot of the intelligence agencies had direct ties with a lot of these leaders, and they were all using the same practices. So what was actually going on there? Well, and again, this is my theory. My theory is that they were actually using these cults in order to test brainwashing techniques, in order to take average normal people that are coming into these cults and get them to believe insane, absurd things, do obscene, horrific, violent acts, commit suicide by drinking Kool-Aid, do the Charles Manson murders, believe in helter-skelter, believe that aliens are dropped down into the ocean, come up on the ocean, and indwell human beings like they believe in Scientology. Some of the most absurd, ridiculous things. And what I'm seeing is they're using the exact same tactics in politics in order to manipulate all of us. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of breaking this all down so that way then you can look at your life and figure out, okay, what do I believe and why do I believe it? Do I believe it because I was told this, because I was conditioned to believe this, or do I believe this because I actually know for a fact that it's true? And so that's really the whole premise of the book. You guys can pre-order on my website, jeffdornick.com. Again, it's called Following the Leader, and hopefully it'll be out this fall.
All right. Man, I'm going to have to get that, because that's one thing that is basically the crux of what I've been trying to do, is to lift the veil off of people's eyes and to, force them to look at the world not through a series of talking points that have been propagated by either side of the aisle. And let's get down to real data. Let's get down to real solutions. And let's really start to examine why we say the things we say, why we follow the people we follow, why we do the things we do. And really ditch the political gangbanging for a moment, ditch the identity politics and the tribalism for a moment, and let's get down to what's actually happening, what we can actually have an effect on, and let's start moving from there, and starting it where you can be effective in your local government, to your state government, and your federal government. And for those of us like me and you who operate at a larger, grander scale in federal politics, how to be effective in that, because there's a lot of grifters and there's a lot of money in continuing to, and I'm a believer that conspiracies majority of the time are propagated by very few people who actually know what's going on and trusting everybody else to act in their own perceived self-interest, which is how actual conspiracies work. So the idea that there's entire groups who are all a part of the conspiracy is, astronomically false.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. I just think we need to actually think through these things, and again, get away from just the hot takes on stuff and actually dive into the details. That's where the key is, and that's where you can actually change minds. You get away from the hot takes, you start getting into the details, and you start getting people to kind of rationalize their position based upon facts that they can't refute. Like, I can't tell you how many people I got to change their mind on the COVID vaccine just by pointing them to the data and then basically saying, here's what the data is. And then you just sit back and you shut up and let them actually think through that and think through the ramifications of their worldview. And a lot of times they're like, crap, maybe I was lied to a little bit.
Yeah. You did that to me, actually, Jeff. You were on my show a couple of years ago, and I'm like, oh man, this is like, I didn't want to take it before, but I definitely didn't want to take it after I talked to you. So, Jeff Dornick, thanks for coming on the show, guys. Don't forget to go to jeffdornick.com. You can pre-order the book. I will be, because that sounds like an awesome book. I can't wait to read it.
Yes, please tell everyone where they can find you and where they can follow you and follow the rest of your work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can find me on like I'm on X, I'm on Rumble, and all that kind of stuff. But best place obviously is Pickaxe. So just go to pickaxe.com. You guys can sign up. You guys can follow me. We've got a bunch of amazing people out over there. We've already got Children's Health Defense, Daily Clout, Naomi Wolf, Shannon Joy, a bunch of really awesome people that are already over there. So make sure that you guys are checking all of that out as well and joining the conversation.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for coming on. I look forward to having you in the future and hopefully having you on my show, and we can go a little bit deeper and a little bit longer.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So up for our next segment, but after this break, we have Ann Vandersteele to discuss the Epstein Files. We gave you a little tease with Jeff. Let's dig into it in the next segment. See you in a few. United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Aceyard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Aceyard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at augustalawncareservices.com/Londonderry. That's augustalawncareservices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
released yesterday in Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the
Yeah, sure. If
Hey, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
I can't believe you're talking about Epstein. Who is the one who promised to give us the Epstein Files? Wasn't it just like we're talking about it because they all of a sudden claimed there are no files or there is no list? There's a reason we're talking about it.
It would have stayed an issue on the web, and it would have stayed an issue amongst the influencer class. So I'm not saying it would have disappeared, but it would have stayed there the same way. 9/11 files and JFK and the MLK files and everything with the FBI and COINTELPRO. It would have stayed with all that stuff had he not made the promise. And I'm a huge Trump supporter, but I don't blindly support Trump. I don't have Trump derangement syndrome, nor do I have Trump devotion syndrome. You can be criticized like anybody else. And like we were just discussing with Jeff, you said for years that you knew that they had the information, that you were going to get it, that you were going to release it. It was a campaign promise. You mentioned it multiple times in multiple speeches all over the country. At what point? I mean, come on, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
Well,
and the thing that gets me is, okay, so I like to be a very charitable. Let's say that let's just think about this, and just give him all the benefit in the world, all the benefit of the doubt, right? Trump, let's say that he had every intention of releasing the Epstein files, and he just whatever. He's there. He's trying to get Pam to do it, and she won't do it, and he doesn't know why Pam isn't doing it. Who knows? He's not directly connected to it, so. Yeah. Maybe it's Pam's fault, or maybe it's somebody underneath her who's telling her that whatever the issue is.
Maybe there's a train of bad information.
Trump shouldn't be surprised that we're asking him about it because, he promised it. And they just released this weekend that they're not going to give us anything. So, I mean, of course we're going to ask him.
After doing the whole thing with the binders at the White House. So, come on, man. And the binders didn't give us anything that we didn't already know or that wasn't already publicly available. So you can't sit here and be like, hey, not only am I doing this, not only was it a campaign promise, but here's these guys who I'm going to give the binders so they can disperse it out to you. Why are you guys still talking about this after telling you that I'm not going to give you anything on it? That's bullshit. It's just bullshit.
Now, what is your theory as to what's, because You gotta look at these. If you got the four names, let me see if I can get them all. Of course, Trump. You got Pam Bondi. You've got Kash Patel and Dan Bongino.
Yep.
Right. I mean, they're all able to. They're all involved in this, right? Mm-hmm. They all promised to release this.
Yep.
They can't all four of them have been lying to us. I have a really hard time imagining that Dan Bongino would have been lying about wanting to get to the bottom of this stuff. So. They're obviously not giving us whatever information they have. They have something that they're not. I mean, it's clear. It's pretty clear.
You have something.
That they're hiding something.
Then be honest about the fact that you have something, but you can't disperse it to the public.
Yeah, the idea that this is only child pornography, that's the only thing that Epstein was doing, is just complete nonsense. We have many, many victim testimonies otherwise. Mm-hmm. So is it all just these foreign leaders of governments that Trump is trying to make deals with that they don't want to ruin the deal or something? I mean, is it something like that? I mean, what is... there's got to be some reason here.
Or is it that somehow, apparently, what's the guy who took a shot at him in Pennsylvania? that the people behind that shot are, that shot they took at him might be the people who are threatening him.
Do you think he's afraid they're going to try to assassinate him again? Because
they already took a shot. I mean, he was an inch away from that being lights out.
I have a hard time believing that is a motivating factor for Trump, because he just bombed Iran.
I don't think it's a motivating factor. I think. I don't want to do the whole 5D chess thing. Maybe he's really, kind of like Iran, where I say we're going to have peace and I'm going to bomb the shit out of you. Or I don't want to do the 5D chess where maybe he, we're not going to release the Epstein list. Oh, by the way, we just caught this person, this person, this person. By the way, there is a list, and we just arrested 30 people.
Right.
Like I don't want to jump to that level of speculation that there's going to be some big reveal behind the once you look behind the curtain to see who the wizard is. I don't want to get into that, because I find that to be an endless spiral that is disingenuous at best.
And we were talking about this a little bit before the show too, that Trump seems to be not so much this mastermind behind this 4D chess, but rather he seems pretty much very pragmatic.
Yeah.
So when he gets pushed back about amnesty, he's like, "Oh no, we're not doing amnesty." Mm-hmm. And so I think he needs people on shows like ours, and bigger, even more nationwide shows that are going to be pushing back on things like this, so that he will
vindicate him, so that our pressure outweighs the DC pressure, because with the amount of people, and especially the list of people who we know flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane and visited the island, that's going to be a lot of pressure. Yeah. I mean, you have politicians, industry leaders, heads of entire industries, heads of executive agencies, 3-letter agencies, royal family, heads of state.
That might be it. Presidents. There might be a lot of FBI, people involved. But I know who can give us answers. She can give us all the answers. Ann Vandersteele is joining us on the show now. I think she's here, ready to go. Juan, is that right? She's the co-founder of American Made Foundation. She was the host of Steel Truth TM, and is considered a thought leader and trailblazer in the new media. And so, Ann Vandersteele, do we have her? No. Okay, well, maybe we'll have her in a minute. I think we have picture, but not audio, so we're working on that. But while we're waiting, we'll have to continue speculating.
All right, well, still. All right, let's get into the conspiracy land. Maybe he's scared of Hillary Clinton, because Bill took a ride on that plane.
See, I have a hard time.
Every time somebody wants to expose the Clintons, somebody manages to come up dead. There's no way everyone around you dies every time they're about to testify.
Hillary already wants Trump dead. Come on, if she could have gotten Trump dead, he'd be dead, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if you're going to speculate anybody that we know of that was going to kill Trump, why wouldn't it be the person who everyone around her and her husband, who's about to testify, shows up dead?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, hey, as soon as somebody says,
I would be very shocked to find out, 20 years, 50 years from now, when we're old and decrepit, and the information's released, that it was because he was afraid of something.
I'm going to run for president. I'm going to promise everybody the Hillary Files. That's what I'm going to promise everyone. The Hillary Files. I will expose the shit out of that, and then I'll lock myself in a steel bunker for the rest of my life.
That does need to be investigated, because Hillary is connected to 50 or 60 different people who,
somehow committed suicide. I'm like, everybody around you is suicide. I mean, she's a horrible person, so it's a possibility that everyone around her who spends any amount of time with her is all of a sudden suicidal. But I highly doubt that it's a 100% ratio.
I'm being told we do have Ann Vandersteele on the line now. Ann, the co-founder of America Made Foundation. Thanks for joining us on the show today. We're here talking about the Epstein Files.
It is great to have you back.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back. I apologize. I guess I had my wires crossed last night seeing Maureen was joining you today. And I had a little entertaining going on. It wasn't until one of the wonderful publicists said, "Hey, you're supposed to be in this interview." And I went, "I thought it was Maureen." And then I read emails and see that Maureen couldn't do it. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'd love to join these guys again. They're fantastic." So thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad that you're here. I'm sorry that Keith Hansen, who's normally in this chair, is not here. I'm the poor substitute, but it's good to have you.
Yeah, of course. Good to be back. Yeah, this is crazy. This whole Epstein thing. Don't you feel like it's sort of like Groundhog Day, and you didn't expect the groundhog to show up in this administration? You just thought maybe that groundhog was finally, either was put down or set free, but certainly not returning. I mean, this is kind of what it feels like, Groundhog Day.
Same thing again and again.
Trump, yeah, well, I was disappointed. And again, look, there's as a social media influencer, I'm very outspoken on a lot of things, and I've been in the game for a while now. It's a good 10 years of, mixing it up with people, but I kind of have a good idea of who's who in the zoo out there. And we all have some of our favorites. I mean, who doesn't love Cat Turd, right? And who doesn't love a lot of these big influencer names out there? But what I'm seeing is, there's this sort of absolutism that is going on in social media. You have to be 100% just trust Trump, trust Trump, trust Trump. Well, you know what? We all worked our butts off to get him elected, not only in 2016, but in 2020, which was stolen in 24. And so, of course, we're behind the president and we want him to succeed, because if he's succeeding, we're succeeding. I mean, that's what making America great's about. But, I look back at our history, and I am a daughter of the American Revolution. I look at the founding fathers. Those guys fought like family members, brothers and sisters. They were all brothers, and they argued incessantly. But look what it did. They distilled down an incredible document, our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, not to mention the Articles of Confederation, which was the predecessor to the Constitution. They wrote some incredible stuff, but they fought like crazy. And this is how you get to what's good. And so to see some of the influencers out there sort of try to shame you if you dare criticize or even question what's going on, I find it is kind of entertaining, because I'm not going to quit my First Amendment. But at the same token, it's sort of like they've had 4 years as we cooled our heels watching the mushroom in the White House, destroy our country with open borders and every other policy known to man to just completely DEI us and wake us or woke us, whatever. You would have thought that Trump would have known who he was going to place in his cabinet. I think he pretty much did. And they would have been getting prepared for this very moment. I mean, by now we had almost 1,000, J6ers arrested under the Biden regime at this point in the presidency. So we don't even have a big indictment. Yes, they're doing a phenomenal job rounding up child traffickers. I think Tom Homan is doing the best he can with what he's got, getting rid of these, illegals. But, talking about getting amnesty for people and then calling those of us that are like, wait a minute, what do you mean 20 million people getting amnesty, for referring to us as the hard right, is a slap in the face? Yes, I'm going to say that's a slap in the face, because that's not at all what we campaigned for. I certainly didn't vote for that. I think the H-2A visa program takes care of that problem, no problem.
Agreed.
But so, there's just some things that seem like, wait a minute, you're doing a complete 180 and we're being treated like the ugly stepchildren if we dare say something. And you know what? No, that's not how this country works. The founding fathers fought. We're going to fight. We're going to use our words and we're going to disagree. But I know that President Trump doesn't want America to go down in flames. I know that, my other fellow social media influencers out there and other podcasters and you guys, we're diehards. We love America. And we may disagree on the nuance of how to get there, but I'm certainly not going to, belittle you and say, well, you shouldn't say that because that means you're not loyal to the president. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. It's not an either or. We got to discuss these things and we got to call it like we see it. So, the Jeffrey Epstein thing is just a head scratcher for him and what's her name, Pam Bondi, to be sitting there and have him be dismissive today in a press conference because a reporter asked about it. Was like, what?
Yeah,
are you that out of touch? Hello.
We played that just a minute ago for our audience. Yeah, and
Really?
we have a couple different theories that are forming here in the studio. My theory is Trump is very pragmatic. He might see something that will hurt other Republicans, that will ultimately hurt his agenda, or something like that. That he's sort of getting on board with the hiding it thing.
Right.
Our producer Juan thinks that he's going to say it's not going to get released, and then it's going to get released, and he's going to have plausible deniability to say, no, I didn't mean to release it, which I think, that's Juan over there. I don't know about that. But I think Julian is more like Trump is scared of getting assassinated.
I don't know. I say it more as a joke, right? Like, maybe the people who took a shot at him once will take a shot at him again if he releases the fact that, I don't know, maybe all of them are involved in visiting Epstein's Island. But I think the bigger issue is, why say that you have the list on your desk, Pam Bondi? Why say that you're going to release the files? Why do the pomp and circumstance of having all the influencers at the White House, giving them the white binders, which turned out to be frickin' nothing burgers, and going through all of that, making the campaign promise, and then telling us that no, it doesn't exist. Well, you thought it existed a couple months ago. You thought it existed when you gave them the files at the White House. You thought it existed when you said you had the list on your desk. You thought it existed then. Why doesn't it exist now? If you're going to tell me pragmatically you can't release it for national security reasons or diplomatic reasons or whatever, then fine, call a spade, but don't tell me it doesn't exist after playing in my face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's another school of thought as to why they might not be releasing it. No, today she clarified that the videos, when she talked about there's tens of thousands of these child porn videos, she clarified that it wasn't Epstein in the videos, it was videos he had collected. So that, this is their excuse now, but it goes to show that they even paid a lot of attention to it, because it's now 6 months in. And it's not as if we haven't been looking at this for the last 4 years. And prior to that, remember, she was AG when he was arrested the first time. Actually, She became AG during that whole thing. And there's just a lot of kind of big question marks. But the one that sort of jumps off the page to me that I think may be plausible, besides the fact somebody took a shot at the president, I would say it's another agency of a different country that likes to send a lot of, well, maybe they nominated Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. We'll leave it at that. But I also think it potentially could be donors. It could be some very, very, very big donors. And when you have a donor class and you're looking at a very contentious midterm election coming up that we need to win, if we're going to actually codify these executive orders into some semblance of real law here and hopefully set this republic free at some point in the future, this big, beautiful bill, we can talk about it if you want. I don't know how much time we have, but there's just some stuff that really needs to get done, and it's not getting done through executive order. It's just going to get wiped away if we don't win the next election.
Let's
talk
about
it. If we lose the midterms, if we lose the midterms, it's going to be incredibly painful.
Let's get into the big, beautiful bill. And to that regard, I would say if you're taking the larger picture of, trying to get done what desperately needs to get done, then say nothing until after the midterm elections, if anything. Like, say nothing until it's advantageous. Be strategic about it. Don't play the games. But let's dig into the bill.
Yeah. Well, some things, I put a Substack out today, and these are some things that jumped off the page, having read some other work out there on the big, beautiful bill. And of course, the things that stood out to people that were very concerning was the first thing I recall was the AI. People are going, oh my God, the states are going to be, have their hands tied and so on and so forth. But I don't think people understand what this big, beautiful bill has done if you're a U.S. citizen. So let's frame this in the context of what's happened over the last 4 years. We obviously ignored the border, and the border was left wide open. We had tens of millions of people come across the border. Many of them are dangerous criminals. And Tom, God bless him, Holman is on Fox News and whoever else will listen to him almost every day talking about it. And they're doing everything they can. ICE is doing all they can to round him up. But they've marketed this big, beautiful bill, which, by the way, by their own admission, they were working on during the last 4 years of the Biden regime. So that should have been like red flag on the field, number one, that they've been working on this. They marketed it as a very pro-growth, pro-family omnibus reform. Red flag number 3, omnibus. I recall President Trump term 1 when he swallowed that $1 trillion bill that he signed, the omnibus, which, he was $1.2 trillion. And he said, well, a lot of it was going into military, if you recall. But he said, we'll never do that again. He said it. We will never, ever, ever sign a bill like that again. And then what does he come out with? His first piece of legislation, this giant omnibus. And in the true form of Nancy Pelosi, you'll have to pass it before you get to read and see what's inside of it. So this is anything but how America is supposed to operate. It's just nothing but a sweeping statutory weapon that redefines a lot of things like enforcement, eligibility, and then, of course, the question of jurisdiction. And that's where I was looking at this big, beautiful bill through the lens of jurisdiction, because in this big, beautiful bill, if you're a U.S. citizen, there's things in there that talk about bypassing Article 3 courts, stripping as a U.S. citizen of any due process, and then empowering AI, ready for this, and private contractors as enforcers of the law. So think about that for a second. Privatizing and empowering AI and private contractors to enforce the law. So it puts the U.S. citizen in a position of administrative only remedies, which is not a place you want to be, because if you have an immediate injunctive relief you need, an Article 3 court is where you need to go. Trying to start at the lower courts and go through the statutory process is not only painful, it's woefully expensive, and usually you don't win. You know, it's really hard to get a win in that situation. So this is basically a legal cage for anybody that is trying to get some sort of remedy out of the court system. And the big, beautiful bill, again, it governs people that have Social Security numbers. It governs people that are filing tax returns. It governs people who are on the Medicare federal student aid, or this, Make America, I think it's Grow Again, the MAGA accounts they're creating. And of course, any of the federal employees and contractors. But what it doesn't apply to are the people who aren't American or who aren't U.S. citizens. And the federal government, through their own statutory recognition, does actually recognize people who are state nationals. And you can go get a U.S. passport as a non-resident non-U.S. citizen, as an American national, and be recognized as such by the federales, by the federal government. So interesting that when you look at this big, beautiful bill through the lens of, well, how can I not be punished by what's in it? Well, it means if I'm not a U.S. citizen, but my allegiance is to this country, none of this applies to me then. So I get my Article 3 court remedies and everything, all the good stuff that I would ordinarily get that the Constitution provides, but I don't have to deal with any of the statutory garbage that they're shoving down our throat. So it's a really, it's interesting if you look at it through that lens.
Wow. That's an implication I hadn't picked up. I think I was going through, the big headlines that everyone was getting sucked up in, the MAGA accounts that was one that caught my interest, because the way they're doing it, I've often advocated for the idea of, if you're going to get rid of, because we've long as conservatives said that Social Security needed to go, that it's a giant Ponzi scheme. And had any citizen, as a matter of fact, Bernie Madoff just died in prison doing the exact same thing that Social Security currently does. And my contention was, if you're going to do anything, set it up like an E-Trade account you can access on your phone that belongs to you, that the government cannot take, cannot manipulate, because the government sucks at investing in anything. But you could tie an account, $1,000 account, that to the S&P 500, let it grow at 7 to 8% every single year, and by the time you graduate, you got something that is actually tangible you could use to buy a house or to set your life up. Or you could let it ride all the way until you retire and be sitting on millions of dollars to retire on, and it'd be far better than anything you get from the government in the vein of Social Security. So I was like, this might be something that could be a first step towards remedying the problem that is the Social Security system and getting rid of it in the near future through following pieces of legislation, so that, our generation, we're not going to see Social Security, at least not in any meaningful form.
Probably not. Yeah.
This might actually remedy that, and stay a lot of the criticism of people who think that the government is supposed to be some welfare machine.
Yep, absolutely. And before we have to go, I do want to make sure that we hear about how we can get in touch with you, how we can follow you, maybe on X, and tell us more about the America Made Foundation.
Sure. American Made Foundation is a 501c3. It is our educational arm. We shoot documentaries through there, and we actually provide educational material to people that want to understand more about the constitutional republic and how you can operate in it. But our AmericanMadeAction.org is a 501c4, and that is our action arm of the American Made Foundation, where we actually are working with lawmakers. We're working with attorneys. Currently, we're focused on a couple of areas. One is child protective services, not only nationally, but individually in all 50 states, to defund the head of that snake and to bring the same pain to them that they brought to millions of families. We're going to liberate these families by taking down this organization. Like President Trump disassembled the Department of Education, we the people intend to disassemble the Child Protective Services organization statewide and nationwide. And they have 3-letter acronyms of different varieties that all sound like they're doing good things, but in fact, they're really engaging in child trafficking for profit. and the separation of parents and parental alienation from their children. Many of these children end up heavy drug users and being trafficked. And so this has got to end. It's not helpful to our country. You cannot make a country great if its people aren't great. So we want to end that. Additionally, we're looking very heavily, and we're already working with a team of attorneys, and we have a strategy on how to deal with what's going on in the skies. And we're starting here in Florida, and everything is built around trust and sovereignty and your state constitution and our U.S. Constitution. So we've got a team and a strategy, and you're going to hear more about this very soon. But we believe we can stop the madness coming out of these U.S. coded, should we say, U.S. agencies under various U.S. codes that are permitting them under the state of national emergency, leveraging various titles and codes to continue to poison our skies. We believe we have a solution to stop that. And then, if it's violated, literally hold them accountable for treason at capital punishment type levels. So we're not playing around. We're very serious in what we're doing. I've sent you a link in the chat to our Substack, but if you go to AmericanMadeFoundation.org and AmericanMadeAction.org, you can learn more about what we're doing. You can reach out to us. And if you want to join us, there's places for you to upload your documents or reach out to us. And as an attorney that wants to be part of our team, we're open to anybody and everybody, including the people, because it's the people that are bringing the action as well. It's fifth generation warfare, gentlemen, so we've got to engage as such.
Thank you.
That is so cool. We definitely need to go check that out. American Made Foundation, guys. Thanks, Ann Vandersteele, for joining us on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you all. And keep up the great work. You guys have an awesome show up there. Love the Granite State.
Thank you. And we look forward to having you back on in the near future.
Super. Take care.
She is a firecracker. I mean, she's
Absolutely
awesome.
Love it.
Yeah. She doesn't feel like she needs to sort of temper, be more politically correct with her words or anything. She just says it, the way she thinks it, right? I love that.
I absolutely love it. It keeps things real. You never have to wonder, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, this wasn't that bad of a show without Keith Hansen, right?
No, not at all.
Look, I won't do it every week, but I'm not that bad, am I?
All right, that is it for this week's episode of Granite State Live. Please tune in. Check us on Ram TV Live. Tune in next week for the next episode. We're out. We'll see you soon. Shadow Band is up next.